Hey everybody, it's Christina. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be playing with ink pads. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can use ink pads to create some fun backgrounds for your cards. So let's get started. The first one's going to be the ink pad dragging technique. For that one, you just need some kind of adhesive like sticky tape, painter's tape. If you have masking paper, you can use that. Piece of cardstock. I'm using some 80-pound cardstock and an ink color. So this could be, I'm using Distress Oxides, but you can use any kind of ink pads that you want. And if you're going to use something like a sticky tape, like this is a low tack tape, I would still go ahead and take this and I'm going to actually put it onto my clothes to get rid of some of that tack so that it doesn't rip my cardstock as I pull it away. I'm just going to take my tape and actually put it right on the very edge of my cardstock, just so I have that little bit of a border going around. So you can see all the fuzz from my sweater there. You're going to do the same thing on all four sides. So again, I'm just sticking it to my clothes just to get rid of some of that tack. And then I'll put it down at the bottom. And this side, I'll actually leave it the way it is, just so I could show you that it does, especially this tape, I have found that it will tear. So I'm just going to leave it this side as is and put it down, and then the rest of them I dabbed onto my clothes to try to get some of the sticky off. I'm going to take my ink pad and I am just going to go directly onto my cardstock, and I'm just going to drag my ink across that cardstock and fill this in. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is give yourself some time to let this dry. And what's great about this is if you're looking for a color cardstock that you don't have in any color, but you have something similar in ink color, rub it onto a piece of cardstock and let it dry. And then you can use that for your die cutting or anything like that. So I already have this done. I'm just going to peel it off. I didn't do the best job making sure that it's perfectly covered. I'll do this side, which is the side that I did not stick down to my clothes. And normally, well, this is going to be the time that I didn't do it. Oh, there it is. So it started to tear right there. Usually I have that problem, so sticking it onto my clothes definitely helps. I'm going to come in the other direction since I already have a little tear in that corner. We're going to peel this off. And we'll get this side. Trying to do this without putting my arm down in the ink. And there we go. Then we're left with this pretty border. So I did accidentally get this into the ink over here, so I have a little bit of an edge here, but probably going to end up die cutting this, making it a little bit smaller. But I'll set this aside and let it dry, and we'll come back and see how this looks once it's dry. For my next one, I'm going to do a little bit of an ombre effect, and I'm going to do it two different ways to show you two different ways that you can do this. So the first one, just grabbing my 80-pound cardstock. I selected from my Simon Says Stamp stash here 3 different shades of yellows. We have Butter, Zest, and Honey, and I love how that Simon Says Stamp sells them in groups of 3 because it does help you if you want to create an ombre look. I'm going to grab a my yellow blending brush here, and I'm going to set these two aside. I'm going to start with my lighter color and I'm going to move into my darker color. The reason why I'm doing that is because I'm using my blending brush, and this way I don't have to work too hard to get the darker color off to get back to the lighter color. So starting with the lighter color, I am going to just come in from one end and start blending up just like so. And when I'm doing my blending, I like to start off of my cardstock and go onto my cardstock. So I'm going to start blending onto my glass and then moving up into my cardstock. So I'm going to go up as high as I want to with this one. I'm going to probably just leave it right there, and we'll move into my next color, which is going to be Zest. And for this one, I'm going to start from the sides and move my way into the center. So I'll probably turn this just a little bit. and then we'll start moving in from the side into the center. Most likely I'm going to end up cutting this down or using a die cut to make this a smaller panel, because I probably would want this separated with some black cardstock, or maybe just put it onto a card base. So usually I die cut my panels to be a little bit shorter when I'm making a card. Okay. Put the right lid on there. And then we're going to go with our darker color, which is the honey. I am just going to grab my rag over here and just wipe some of that color off. And then I will come in with my darker color, and we'll start blending again from the outside into the cardstock. The more layers you put down, the darker it gets. So zest and honey are pretty close in color. So I'm probably going to really load up the zest just to get it so it's nice and dark at the top. Oops, it popped my little marker off there. So it's darker at the top. Then we have the medium color and then the lighter color. I'm going to let this dry and we'll come back and look at this when it's done. I didn't do the best job at blending it out, but it was just mainly to show you one way to do an ombre look. I brought in another trio of colors, and we're going to do another ombre look using watercolor. For this one, I'm going to take my ink pads. I'm using guava, watermelon, and cherry. Again, all by Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just going to stamp out my color or ink up my glass mat here with those three colors. So we're going to go from the lightest to the darkest. And we'll put cherry down. And for this one, I'm going to take a spray bottle and I'm going to put a nice hefty amount of water on this so that this ink starts to move around a little bit. And I do that because I want to be able to take my watercolor paper and set it down and not have to move it around too much. And this is going to create a nice ombre look for this as well. So I'm going to put this right down into the ink here, making sure we soak up a nice amount of that and get it all nice and covered. We're probably going to end up with ink all over us. That's okay. That's the fun part of playing with ink. I'm going to grab my tweezers, maybe make it a little easier to pick this up. And then we end up with that pretty ombre look there. And of course, you have this on here. You can do a whole bunch of different patterns, but one other thing you could do is take another piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to grab that since I already have this little bit of a mess on here. I'm just going to grab another piece of cardstock, and even though it's more mixed together, I'm just going to go in with that piece of cardstock and pick up this color. And we can just keep dabbing until we've filled up this entire piece of cardstock with the ink. So we're not wasting any ink. And you can get some fun patterns with this as well. So we're going to set that aside. We'll clean this up. I'm going to start drying this one because I don't want these colors to blend too much. So I'm going to grab my heat tool and just start heating this one. And you can tell when it's starting to dry, it kind of curls up. I usually will flip it over, give it a heat from the back side too. It helps keep the panel somewhat flat. And there we go. So we have a nice ombre look there. I'm going to heat dry this one, and I'm going to show you another way you can use this. We have this one that we created the ombre look with the ink pads directly onto our glass mat and water. And this one we use to kind of pick up the rest of it. And what I like about this is that we can take a spray bottle. So I have my little Tim Holtz spritzer here. I'm just going to kind of move these out of the way. And we're going to give a couple spritzes on here. And because I use the Simon Says Stamp ink, which does react to water, we're just going to let that sit. And then I could take my rag and just kind of dab up that color, and you can start to see that it leaves this cool watercolor look. Now, one thing I can do is I can also come in and add another color. So if I don't really like this really bright pink, I can come in with another color. So I'm going to throw some cantaloupe on there. It's a little bit of an oranger color. I'm going to spray this with my water bottle. I'm even going to spray my cardstock again. And I'm going to come back in and just pick up that ink. And it gives a really cool tone to it. You have another color that you can add in there, and it gives it that really neat look. So you kind of take something that you use just to pick up your leftover ink and then made another different type of panel to it. So I'm going to let that sit, let the colors kind of do its thing, and then I'm going to dry it with my heat gun. So, and if you're curious, I'm using the Ranger Heat It tool. It is not like an embossing gun. It's just a low heat tool that is great for drying things like your ink panels, your watercolor panels. I've even used it to dry acrylic paint. It's a great little thing to have in your craft stash. So there we go. We went from a brighter pink to this really fun color here with the pink and the orange. And I really like this. I did this with also another panel and ended up with a totally different look. I could spray more water in here. I can get something a little bit closer. Really love the way this one came out. And what I did with this is I took a stamp and just stamped a big background stamp, stamped it with some Versamark and used white embossing powder. And I think that just gave a really fun background. I'm going to come back to my ink dragging technique as well as my ombre, but except for I'm going to do this in a rainbow color. So we can do a couple of different colors. I'm just going to use 3 just so you can kind of get the idea, but we're going to use saltwater taffy, scattered straw, and dried marigold, and I'm going to do this in a dragging technique. Now I can go ahead and add some low-tack tape around the edge to create a frame, but I'm not going to do that today. I am just going to take my ink pad and go directly onto the paper, and I'm just rubbing it back and forth to get a nice good coverage. We'll even clean this up so we don't contaminate our other ink pad with that color. I'm going to come in with my scattered straw, and I'm going to kind of go, oops, try not to bend your cardstock, but I'm just going to kind of blend over the top of my saltwater taffy there. And then I'm going to come in at the bottom and do dried marigold. I'm going to set this aside and let the inks dry because I love the way once the Distress Oxide is dry, how it kind of has that more of a chalk look to it. But you could do the ombre look with different shades of one particular color, or you could do it as a rainbow, which is a nice way to add some nice color to your cardstock. The next one we're going to do is create a bokeh background. Now you're going to want to grab a stencil that has a nice circle in it. So if you have any kind of stencils that have a circle, a solid circle, grab that. So I have these 2, which is stencils that are in 2 different sizes, but I wanted something a little bit bigger. So I have this blank stencil sheets, and they are Mylar sheets. They're in a 7.5 mil, and I used a circle die, and die cut my own stencil. So I'm going to have my own stencil that I can use for bokeh techniques, but I can do a combination of the solid or a bigger circle or a smaller circle. But for this, I'm just going to go with the bigger circle just to show you how you can do it. But these Mylar sheets are great because they can be run through your die cut machine. You just want to add your metal shim to them just to make sure you're getting through your die. And I can't tell you if this would do any damage to your dies if you were to use it repeatedly. I only ran it through one time using my metal plate just to get through it. I purposely bought this to run with my electronic die cutting machine, so I can't say whether this will cause damage on your regular metal dies. All right, so I'm ready to go. I have Nectar, Sea Glass, and Ballet Slipper, and Concorded 9th ink, and I am just going to start off with the Nectar ink, and we're just going to pop the top on this one. I'm going to grab a brush and just lightly add this color onto the stencil. So we're just going to blend it in, and I'm going to pick it up and put it in a couple of different places. So we don't have to do it all in one spot. We're going to just kind of blend this out. It doesn't have to be solid. You need to just have that kind of light look to it. Just going to add a couple on here. We can come back and add some more of these as we go. So again, just a light coating of ink is all we need to start with. And this is going to create a fun background. I'm going to switch over to my ballet slipper. And what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to start just overlapping some of my circles. Ballet slipper is a really pretty color, and it's a nice light color. I just want to make sure I'm holding my cardstock and my stencil at the same time. We're just going to keep adding that color in here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start coming in with my other color, and then I might just repeat this process all over again to create more of the bokeh look. So if you're not familiar with what bokeh is a kind of like a flare effect that you get when the sun hits your lens if you're taking a photo. And it is really pretty, but of course, when you don't want that bokeh look is when you get it on your photos. This one is a little dark, so I'm gonna actually tap some of this color off. I should have done that to begin with. So this color is a little bit darker. We're gonna just add this in different spots here. I think personally, I should have come in with a yellow. I think yellow would have been really pretty with this, but I like the green too. And you can pretty much bring in any colors that you want for this. It's the sun effect, you know, that you're trying to get. And it just comes out really pretty. So I'm just going to add this last one right here. I like to do it off the page as well, just to kind of give that look. So we're just going to leave it like that. I can add a couple more. Well, I can't leave it like that. I'm going to have to add a couple more. So I'm going to go back to the orange color and just add a little bit more of this orange in different places. And if you wanted to, you can take a piece of colored cardstock and create the background too. You can even come in with a lighter shade. If you have something lighter than this color here, you can come in with that and even fill in the whole background. So it's not quite stark white, but I kind of like it just like this. And I just think this is really pretty. Maybe a little bit more pink. No, we might leave it like that. I was going to add a little bit more pink, but I think I'm just going to leave it just like that. I think this is so fun, and then a nice dark sentiment or something like that on there would be so pretty. So that is how I create my bokeh backgrounds, but there are definitely other ways. I like this particular way because I'm just going to hold on to this stencil and then I have it for whenever I want to create my bokeh backgrounds. But if you have a stencil with a circle, try that too. And not only do our full ink pads get a lot of use, but our mini ink pads need some love too. So I'm going to grab some of these mini ink cubes. I'm just going to go with a couple shades of pink, but you could do these in any color. And this is Bristol cardstock. So it's not Nina cardstock, it's a Bristol cardstock. And I like it because it's a little bit smoother. And I'll show you why I like it. I think this technique is kind of fun. I'm just going to take this ink pad and I give it a little twist. I like the way the ink blends better onto the Bristol cardstock than I do with the regular cardstock. So I'm just going to keep taking this ink and just giving it, pouncing it around, giving it a little bit of a twist while I'm doing it. And then I'm going to come in with my next color and do the same thing. And for that, I'm just creating this really fun, colorful background. And you could, like I said, you could do these in any colors. I just happen to like the Bristol cardstock the best because I feel like it's a little smoother for doing the twist of the inks. So I'm just going to keep filling this up and twisting it in. And to me, this almost looks like a rose pattern, where if you're an artist, which I am not, one that can draw very well, you can actually almost see roses in here. And if you were really good and you had a good eye for drawing, you can almost outline some pretty roses, and then you'd have this really cool background. I made one on a regular cardstock, and for this one, some of the inks did blend well, but some of them left more of that square look. Now I have some of the square look here, but it's not quite as bad, and especially as it dries, it looks completely different. And if you want to get wild, you can do it in different colors. This was just me playing. Again, this is on the Bristol cardstock, and I was just playing around with the colors and seeing what colors I liked the best. And I really loved the way kind of the pink tones came out, but you could definitely do these in different colors too. Ink pads are not just for stamping, they're fun ways to make great backgrounds. Let's just review some of the ways we used our ink pads today. The first way was to do an ink dragging technique with our ink pads. And this is a great way to create a nice framed background, but you can also use it as a replacement for any cardstock colors you might not have. Our next one is creating an ombre background using blending brushes. And this one is so pretty in the yellow, but you could do this with any shades of colors. And that's what I like about Simon Says Stamp with their trio colors. And it just makes a built-in easy way to create that ombre look. Another way to create an ombre look is to take our ink pads directly to our craft mat, add water, and then take some watercolor paper and set it into that. You just don't want to wiggle it around too much because you'll end up blending too much. But love the way this one came out. So we have the lighter to the darker color. Again, you can even do it the other way too if you want to. And then don't forget to use that leftover ink by taking another piece of watercolor and putting that and dabbing it into that ink so you can create some fun backgrounds. And then if you add some more water and another color, you can definitely create more interest in that background as well. And just going back to kind of a striped or ombre kind of style, this one is more of a rainbow themed, but take your colored inks and create some fun stripes on your backgrounds as well. And the fun bokeh technique using a stencil that we made ourselves, but this is definitely something that if you have a stencil that has a circle in it, you can use that as your bokeh background. I keep seeing this with some birthday candles on it and nice big birthday sentiment. And then, of course, our little mini ink pads had to have some love. Again, on some Bristol cardstock, we used this to create this background. And like I said, you can always draw in some lines and make these little sections into a rose. But it's a really fun way to create almost your own pattern paper if you do those roses in. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, learned something new, or were just reminded of some old techniques you may not have tried in a long time. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.